Dale Evans was more than just the smiling cowgirl who stood beside Roy Rogers on stage and screen. She carried secrets that weighed heavily on her heart, truths that she was forced to hide to protect her career, her family, and the image of the perfect Western couple. For decades, she smiled in public, but behind the curtain lived a story of abandonment, grief, and betrayal. In her final years, her health fading, Dale chose to break her silence, confessing the pain and the reality of her marriage that few had ever imagined. A childhood marked by hardship. Dale Evans was born on October 31, 1912, in Uvalde, Texas. Her given name was Lucille Wood Smith, but within months, her parents changed it to Frances Octavia Smith, a detail that foreshadowed the constant reinvention that would shape her life. Known as Francie, she was raised in a family marked by instability and disappointment. Much of her childhood was spent living with her uncle, Dr. L.D. Massey, an internal medicine physician in Arkansas. But even under his roof, security and happiness seemed always out of reach. At just 14 years old, Dale made a choice that would alter the rest of her life. She eloped with Thomas Fox, a man who offered escape but not stability. By 15, she was a mother to a baby boy, Thomas Fox Jr. Within a year, her husband had abandoned her, leaving the young girl to struggle alone in Memphis, Tennessee. To the outside world, it looked like a reckless teenage mistake. To Dale, it was the first lesson in heartbreak, the first scar that taught her how merciless life could be. Determined not to let misfortune define her, she leaned on her one true gift, music. She found work as a pianist and singer at local radio stations like WMC and WREC, slowly building an audience. But as much as she craved success, she also longed for reinvention. That came when a station manager suggested a new name, something memorable, something that could erase the shadow of scandal and a failed marriage. From that day forward, Frances Octavia Smith became Dale Evans, a name that sparkled with promise, even if the truth behind it remained heavy with pain. Her rise in Hollywood and the lies she was forced to tell. By the late 1930s, Dale Evans was beginning to find her footing in the entertainment world. She was no longer just a struggling single mother with a stage name. She was building a reputation as a talented jazz, swing, and big band singer. Her smooth voice and strong presence earned her opportunities that many young women could only dream of. Soon, her performances caught the attention of 20th Century Fox Studios, and she was given a chance at a screen test. She didn't land the coveted part opposite Bing Crosby in Holiday Inn, but the studio saw potential and signed her to a one-year contract. For Dale, this was the break she had been waiting for. Yet Hollywood was never a place where truth was welcome. Executives decided that her image needed to be spotless, clean, innocent, and free from the complications of her past. And so, a cruel lie was invented. Her son, Thomas Jr., would no longer be presented as her child. Instead, the studio introduced him as her younger brother. Tommy. For Dale, the deception was agonizing. She had to stand in front of cameras and fans pretending that her son was not her son. Every photo, every press release, every interview was a reminder of the truth she could not speak. It was not just a professional sacrifice, it was a personal wound that cut deeper with each passing year. Her boy grew up living a half-truth, and she carried the guilt silently, knowing she had chosen her career over her honesty. Despite the pain, her star was on the rise. In 1943, she appeared alongside John Wayne in Old Oklahoma, a role that introduced her to movie audiences nationwide. The following year, she was cast opposite a cowboy whose fame was already skyrocketing, Roy Rogers. In The Cowboy and the Senorita, audiences witnessed a chemistry that went beyond the script. What began as a professional pairing soon became something far deeper, though the road to their union would be filled with tragedy and loss. The marriage to Roy Rogers and the pain behind the fairy tale. When Dale Evans first shared the screen with Roy Rogers in 1944, the connection was undeniable. Audiences adored them together. Roy, the king of the cowboys, and Dale, the charming cowgirl who seemed to match his energy step for step. But behind the curtain, both of them carried personal histories heavy with heartbreak. Dale had already been through 3 failed marriages. Roy had married twice, first to Lucille Ascalise and later to Grace Arlene Wilkins, who tragically died in 1946 due to complications after giving birth to their son, Roy Jr. In 1947, with their film careers in full swing, Dale and Roy decided to take the leap that their fans had long suspected. On New Year's Eve at the Flying L Ranch in Oklahoma, they married in a ceremony that seemed like the perfect Hollywood ending. For the public, it was a fairy tale come to life, the Queen of the West finally standing beside the King of the Cowboys. They became more than just co-stars. They were marketed as America's wholesome Western couple, a symbol of faith, family, and country values. But marriage to a legend came with sacrifices. Dale soon discovered that Roy's strict, almost military approach to family life could be difficult. He expected discipline, order, and loyalty from his children, and his fame often came first. Dale admitted in later years that she often felt lonely, even while living in the shadow of one of America's most beloved stars. Publicly, she never spoke ill of him, but in private reflections, she confessed that their marriage was not always the storybook romance it appeared to be. The greatest tragedy of their union came quickly. In 1950, Dale gave birth to their only biological child together, Robin Elizabeth. Robin was born with Down syndrome, a condition poorly understood and often stigmatized at the time. Doctors advised Dale and Roy to institutionalize her, to hide her away as many families did. Instead, they chose to keep Robin at home, showering her with love. But the joy was fleeting. Shortly before her 2nd birthday, Robin passed away due to complications with her condition. The loss devastated Dale. She later wrote that Robin's short life changed her forever, inspiring her to write the book Angel Unaware in 1953. It was both a tribute to her daughter and a powerful call to change how society viewed children with developmental disabilities. The book became a bestseller, and Dale's advocacy reshaped public attitudes. Yet, for all the hope she inspired, Dale carried the grief of losing Robin for the rest of her days. A grief that marked her as deeply as any success she ever achieved. Fame, family tragedies, and the burden of faith. The 1950s cemented Dale Evans and Roy Rogers as American icons. Their television series, The Roy Rogers Show, aired from 1951 to 1957, bringing their cowboy and cowgirl personas into living rooms across the nation. Each week, fans watched Roy ride his faithful Palomino Trigger, Dale atop her buckskin horse Buttermilk, and Bullet the Wonder Dog racing alongside. The show ended every episode with a heartfelt rendition of the theme song, Happy Trails, which Dale herself had written. It was a perfect package of music, morals, and Western charm that captured the hearts of millions. But while their public image was filled with smiles and songs, the private reality was far darker. In 1964, another crushing tragedy struck when their adopted daughter Debbie was killed in a church bus accident at just 12 years old. What was supposed to be a joyful trip with other children ended in disaster when the bus lost control. Dale described the loss as one of the most unbearable moments of her life, confessing that no parent should ever have to bury their child. The pain did not end there. Dale and Roy's blended family included children from previous marriages as well as 4 adoptions, but raising such a large family under the spotlight was not easy. Roy's strict discipline often clashed with Dale's more nurturing approach, and in her later years, Dale admitted that she sometimes felt suffocated by his expectations as both a husband and father. She remained loyal, but her honesty about those struggles revealed a more complicated marriage than the world ever saw. Even as their family endured heartbreak, Dale leaned into her faith with more intensity. She and Roy became regular fixtures at Billy Graham crusades, using their celebrity to spread Christian values. Dale also threw herself into writing, publishing inspirational books that spoke to parents struggling with grief and faith. Her words carried hope, but they also revealed the heavy toll of her own losses. Each page was a reminder that behind the Queen of the West lived a woman who carried unbearable sorrow. The couple's public persona of unwavering optimism masked years of hidden grief. For Dale, the pressure to remain America's smiling cowgirl while privately enduring tragedy became both a burden and a calling. She believed it was her duty to share her pain in the hope it could guide others through theirs, even as it exposed the cracks in the myth of the perfect Western marriage. The later years, political stands, final confessions, and Roy's death. By the 1960s and 1970s, the golden age of the singing cowboys was fading, but Dale Evans and Roy Rogers continued to reinvent themselves. They launched a short-lived variety series in 1962, The Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Show, blending comedy, Western skits, and music. Even though it only lasted a few months, it reinforced their image as a wholesome couple whose faith guided their every step. Dale's influence grew beyond Hollywood when she began speaking openly about religion and politics. In 1964, she took the stage at the Project Prayer Rally in Los Angeles, standing before thousands as she declared that America needed to return to mandatory school prayer. Later that same year, she threw her support behind Barry Goldwater's presidential campaign, aligning her public image even more firmly with conservative values. For fans, it was another sign of her deep faith. For critics, it was proof that Dale was blurring the line between entertainment and politics. The couple never stopped working. They recorded religious albums, toured the country, and even returned to television in the 1980s by hosting introductions to their old films on the Nashville network. Dale's songwriting extended into children's music with the popular "The Bible Tells Me So." Yet away from the spotlight, life was becoming more difficult. Their family had endured heartbreak after heartbreak, and Dale privately admitted that the weight of so much tragedy sometimes made her question the very faith she promoted in public. As the years passed, Dale became more candid about her marriage. She confessed to moments of deep loneliness, saying that Roy's demanding career and rigid discipline often left her feeling isolated. She never attacked him outright, but her hints painted a picture of a man who, while beloved by millions, was not always easy to live with. Dale's honesty shocked some admirers, but for others, it made her human. A woman who had suffered, endured, and survived under the pressure of being married to a legend. In 1998, the fairy tale partnership finally came to an end when Roy Rogers died of congestive heart failure at the age of 86. The nation mourned the king of the cowboys, but for Dale, the loss was deeply personal. After more than 50 years together, she was left to walk the final trail alone. For the last 3 years of her life, she carried that emptiness, speaking more openly than ever before about the secrets she had once been forced to hide. Dale's final years and painful confessions. After Roy's death in 1998, Dale Evans's health began to decline, but her determination to speak her truth grew stronger. For decades, she had carried the burden of Hollywood lies, family tragedies, and the loneliness of living in the shadow of a cultural icon. Now, in her 80s, she no longer had the strength or the desire to keep silent. Surrounded by her children and grandchildren, she began to open up with painful honesty. She admitted that the greatest wound of her career was the deception forced upon her in her youth, when she had been told to pass off her son Tommy as her brother. The shame and guilt of that choice never left her, even after she finally revealed the truth when she married Roy. More startlingly, she spoke of the pressures of her marriage. She never denied her love for Roy Rogers, but she confessed that his strictness, his absence during long stretches of filming and touring, and his insistence on discipline had left her feeling abandoned within her own home. She had endured, smiled, and supported him in public, but behind closed doors, she often felt trapped in silence. Her physical suffering matched her emotional struggles. By the late 1990s, Dale was plagued by chronic health issues, pain that left her weak and frail. Yet she continued to write and to speak about the importance of faith, never abandoning her belief that God had guided her through every storm. Her daughter Dodie later recalled how her mother's resilience inspired the family, even when Dale admitted to doubts and regrets. She believed in showing the world that faith was not about perfection, but about surviving hardship with hope. On February 7, 2001, just 3 years after losing Roy, Dale Evans passed away at the age of 88. She was buried beside him at Sunset Hills Memorial Park in Apple Valley, California, ending a love story that had captured the world's imagination. But Dale's final years left a different kind of legacy, a reminder that behind the sequined shirts, behind the cowboy hats, behind the theme song Happy Trails, was a woman who endured heartbreak, carried secrets, and dared, at the very end, to speak the truth. Her legacy lives on through her books, her songs, and the Dale Rogers Training Center, which continues to support children with developmental disabilities in Oklahoma. For all the glamour of Hollywood, Dale Evans's real gift was her ability to transform suffering into compassion, to show others that even the most broken hearts can keep going. Dale Evans lived and died as both a legend and a woman who carried deep scars. Her honesty in her final years revealed a marriage and a life far more complicated than the fairy tale the world believed. What do you think? Was Dale right to finally share her painful truth? Or should some secrets remain buried? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of Hollywood's hidden tragedies.